Hello everyone, this is Smita Mishra, a tester and sustainability enthusiast, welcoming you. So good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of you joining us from across the globe. We hope you all are doing well and taking care of yourself and staying safe. With that said, welcome to our today's episode of the STP training webinar series. The title for our talk today is Applying Software Craftsmanship to the Evolving World of Automation. Our guest speaker joining us on the webinar today is Khyati Sehgal. I'm excited today to host you all and Khyati on the STP webinars. Before we get started with the webinar, let me quickly share a couple of important updates that may interest you. Like I mentioned in the previous webinar, we are approaching that time of the year when we so enjoy meeting all of you at our STPCon Fall Conference. And this year, due to the continued risks that COVID poses for the whole world, we are having to do the conference online. But don't worry, we have you covered. We have done our researches and figured out tools and technologies to make sure we make this a seamless experience for you. So we are hosting the online event, STPCon Virtual 2020, on the 29th and the 30th of September. You can review the world-class speakers, the sessions, and the workshops, and also register for the same at stpcon.com. You can see the link on the slide. If you have any questions or doubts, feel free to email them to us at info@softwaretestpro.com. We are looking forward to make this an exciting and engaging event for you all. And there is an upcoming webinar, Implementing BDD, How One Team is Making It Work, on the 9th of September. The speaker for this is Christine Ketterlin Fisher, who is the manager for BA and QA at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. During this talk, Christine will be focusing on what happens when a traditional organization completely turns their old processes upside down and sets out to conquer BDD. The link is up for you to register. Please do go for it. Also, we are inviting proposals for STP webinars from all of you, and this is open all year round, so you can submit anytime you're ready. All the details along with the submission form are at the link given on the screen. Please go through them. In case you have recommendations on topics or speakers, do email them to us. We will be very happy to hear from you about the topics and preferred speakers. And if you are on Twitter, please share the call for papers information and also about this webinar with your followers and connections, and also about the conference details. You can add STP's Twitter handle to your tweets, which is @SoftwareTestPro. Please do add the hashtag STP webinar if you're tweeting about this webinar. And also note down the Twitter handle for our speaker today, Khyati Sehgal 89. Yeah. Do follow her and continue the conversation beyond this webinar. Okay, let's get started with the webinar now. So welcome, Khyati. We are very excited to have you with us today. Let me quickly introduce you for all of us here. Khyati Sehgal is a quality lead manager at 3Pillar Global with more than 8 years of IT experience, gaining exposure through various aspects of IT in quality assurance roles. Her niche is system integration testing, focusing on multi-tiered system environments involving client server, web application, and standalone software applications. In her current role, she is responsible for defining and implementing tools, processes, and methodologies to support and manage the QA, release management, and deployment management teams. She has been very active in speaking at conferences, writing articles, blogging, and being directly involved in various testing and leadership-related activities. Khyati is always looking to gain inspiration from fellow testers throughout the software testing community. All right, so now let's hear from Khyati herself and get started for our session today. Khyati, the floor is all yours now.
All right, Thank you. That was warm welcome. Thank you, Smita, for just rounding the floor for me. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is my debut in STP webinar. I am Khyati Sehgal. Intro has been given by Smita already. So I have around 9 years of experience in IT, and you can discover me more in the handles which is provided in the slide. So if you want to read my blogs, you can just go through and find some technical blogs in the webinar, and we can talk later in the LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So let's get started with the session. All right, so today's topic is very much close to my heart, and it's, one of my favorite topic which I've shared. There are three things which I'm going to focus on on this session today. One is craftsmanship, the other one is the evolution, and the last one, which is the most important, is automation. That does not mean that this session is only for the QAs. It is for the ones who are actually, ready for growth, ready for evolution, ready for the next level, and related to the product development craft. All right, so I'll start my session with a quote which says, "Building great products is unique." Do we all agree with that building great products is unique? So if you have seen the beauty of the sentence, there is just one adjective, which is unique, which has been added to a single word called product, and it has centralized and totally changed the sentence. Yeah, because that uniqueness has something to do with the innovation, that has something to do with the craftsmanship. And what is this craftsmanship which has brought all of us here? So we are here because we share some values, and those values we all have in us, be it a software development, be it software testing, be it any of the delivery or any of the production of the product which we are working on. We are crafting ourselves and ready to evolve ourselves, no? And we feel pride of it, right, by participating in here. We are here because we really want to, grow ourselves. We want to learn something. We want to apply some best practices, or we are ready for the next level and become better, right? And that's why we are here. So let's understand and let's deep dive into the agenda for today, and let's understand that what I have for you all guys today. So focusing on this, I have, a jumbled image wherein a person is actually struggling and trying to understand what is there in the image. And if you just see and focus it, he is actually looking into a portion of the picture, right? He is just looking into what analytics he can actually apply to make that work, right? There are a lot of aspects of product which we actually deny and we actually not look upon when we are into the product. So I really want to, focus on the beauty of that what are the things which we actually miss by not actually missing it. We see that we are doing our job best, but actually what we are doing is we are actually missing something, right? And what is that something? Let's explore that. So if you see in the image, we have revenues, we have platform models, we are working on most viable product, we have iterations, we have ideas, we have something start, and do we really want to start from there or not, right? So let's understand that and let's look into the agenda, what I have for today. So we are here for, I have some problem statement for us, wherein I will be focusing on the questions which arises while solving these problems. How as a craftsman person we can actually look upon with a different angle to solve a problem. What are the new evolution which is happening not only in automation but also in development or the whole product industry we are talking about for that matter, and what challenges as a QA we face. And last but not the least, we'll be taking on the Q&As. So it's just not the Q&As, guys. If you have any, thoughts, if you have any other aspect of the things which I am delivering or any other quotations or examples which you want to share, please feel free to write and we'll be taking that later. All right. So starting from the problem statement. So what's the problem statement? So there is a project in which I started working a few months back, and this project is this project was based on a GUI-based framework, and the framework name is Aurelia. I'm not sure that how many of you have ever heard of this word Aurelia, but Aurelia is a framework on which we can create our product, and it's quite similar to Angular, right? So it use NPM, it use Node, it use TypeScript, ES6, whatever, all those things which normal Angular applications use, but it has certain, you know, difficulties. Why? Because the forum, and it's not that popular, and it does not support any forum. Yeah, but but to understand the beauty is that the background of the project was supposed to be revamped. So there was a version 1 which is already written in the project, and that was written in Knockout.js, and our team was supposed to build that product in Aurelia. That was the problem statement. So now the question is that if Aurelia is not that popular, so why are we actually using it? Yeah. So the thing was, that was a requirement which came from our client, and the product was given to us to build is with the requirement that we need to develop the product on Aurelia itself. So it's very important to understand the problem statement, because then only we can, you know, understand what's the solution I've applied and we have applied as a team, and how does it actually help us. So for us as a QA team, so developers were in their other phase of developing it and, you know, struggling with the things, but how we need to develop it and all the forums which we can utilize on. And on the other part, we as a QA, what we were doing is we were actually finding it more difficult to get the forums done. So there was just one article when I started looking into it, which says that end-to-end testing with Aurelia. So we really looked into that article, and we understood that what's the problem and how to automate it and how it is similar, what components we can use. So generally, what's the psychology when we actually work in the project is we are too busy in the project that we assume that that we don't usually think on other aspects, right? We assume everything, that yes, it's gonna be like this, it's gonna be like this. So what's the need? Yeah. So we need to just understand what's the need as a QA we need to do. So let's understand that what challenges we usually face. So whenever it comes to automation, so we usually see the top link in the web is Selenium. Yeah, Selenium with Java. That's the most popular. You see a lot of boilerplates. You just import it in your IDE and just start working on it, and you will get a lot of popular forums, blogs, whatnot. You can directly come to the, you know, the developers itself, and you can talk to them on GitHub and whatnot, and then understand that what is the problem. And for one problem, you'll see thousands of blogs and solutions. Yeah. But when it comes to JS based applications, and if there are a lot of other problems as well, which we have seen. So we as a team, what we started was, we started looking into the challenges which we'll see if we have to, you know, automate such applications. So the first one was that DOM changes. So those were the things that DOM was actually changing very often. And, you know, for that, what we need to do is we need to put Java executor, and then sleeps, and then waits, and a lot of dynamic waits as well. Not only the waits were dynamic, they were global as well. So this was actually making our test cases very slow and flaky. So sometimes what happened was test case is passing, and now in the next build it's failing for the same reason. So we were kind of, you know, struggling with these things, and we were kind of, you know, trying to mitigate the risk and find out actually the risk, how we can actually solve the problems. So the other challenges as a team, what we have seen was, the first one was that from a Java background, what we need to understand is we need to, you know, make a say to the team that we are ready for upskilling, and we are ready to, you know, add the skills of JavaScript in our application. So if I talk about in, you know, very practical forums, what we actually do is, just think of the client. If we just agree in keeping, you know, QA team strength, which is equal to dev, we cannot do that, because that buffer is not given to the QA, or let's not segregate QA and dev for that matter as well. So nobody can get that buffer that we'll take a sprint and we'll prepare the automation framework, and then from the next sprint, what we'll do is we'll start writing the automation. That does not work, because we are rapidly changing and we are actually working in agile, right? So the challenges were how to upskill the team with the scope which we are taking as a functional, and then the movement which we have to make from Selenium to the JS based tools, right? The other one was Java TestNG. So if you see that TestNG provides a lot of annotations, no, it provides a lot of other features which you can just utilize and use and start working on it without writing any code snippet. So it has soft assertion library, priority, what not, right? This was another thing. And then what we need to do is we need to change our IDE as well. From Eclipse, what we need to do is we need to move to some other IDE like IntelliJ or VS Code for that matter. Yeah. The other challenges which we have seen is there was very minimal support of software sessions. So if one test case is failing, so you need to wait for next build wherein you need to either skip that test case or you need to just wait and see to get the fix of that test case. Then only you can actually run the test case. So the software assertion plugin was actually missing in here. And then understanding of promise and handling was altogether another story. So the understanding of resolving a promise or rejecting a promise, and for that matter, just writing a promise, how to make our code synchronous. Yeah. These were some, really upcoming upfront challenges which we started with, and we started struggling as a team to understand that how the drift is coming and how we are actually trying to move from Java to any scripting language, maybe a JavaScript or a TypeScript, right? There was one more important aspect of it. So as we move from pom.xml, which is there in Java or Maven for that matter, we have to move to package.json in JavaScript. So for in here, what we need to do is we need to use check the compatibility of the dependencies also. So if we are actually updating the dependencies, so you need to check for the compatibility as well. And that creates a lot of issues when you actually run your test case. So let's understand that how these challenges were taken. All right, so now we as a team are struggling, and now we are understanding that these are the challenges which we have faced. So how to get a say and consent that we are good to go for the next level and we can actually move to any other scripting language in the automation. So the question was, is it the right time? Because we need to look for the timelines, the deadline, the sprint scope, and whatnot. And along with that, we need to move to the next level and evolve ourselves as well. And the other question was, what's the point of trying to master something which we are not masters of, right? So why are we trying to do something which we are not masters of? Is it the right time to do that? So the answer to is there are some concepts which we can actually apply wherein we can actually minimize the struggle which we are facing. So there are 4 aspects of it in collaboration with the craftsmanship and the product mindset. So if you see the points here, the first one is that if you just think of a solution which is the biggest problem of the customer, and for the customer can be you itself, because you are actually creating a solution for yourself as an automation engineer. And that solution has to be very handy and crisp, that whenever you are selling that solution to anybody else, maybe a stakeholder or a delivery leader, or for that matter a business analyst in your team, then you should be convinced enough to make that person understand that this is the solution that works best for me, and what is that best thing which you are going to put, and how do you want to put that point, right? So you need to make that change, and you need to be ready for that change to make that difference happen. Yeah. And how we can do that is by improving ourselves and growing ourselves, not individually or independently, by taking and by using the utilization and power of a team, right? And let's understand that how the craftsmanship and product mindset collaboration happens and how we can actually apply in the agile practices in our daily to-day life. All right, so why the craftsmanship is hard to describe. So let's understand this. So what promise a craftsman person actually make to their fellow person is that they will make an impact in the society. We as a craftsman person, what we do is we actually value the goal. What is the goal? The goal is that we will be proud of what we do. We will create that discipline. We will create that self-respect and the trust amongst ourselves. What does that means is, if we'll be trustworthy, then only we'll be acceptable. So for example, we don't see any hitch in, buying a product from Amazon. And if any of the application launches yesterday, you will be hesitant to, rely on that application and just use that app for that matter. Why? Because you have a trust on a product or a brand, right? And they produce that trust by actually delivering you with the crafts thing, that they are committing to the quality, they are taking all the UX thing, and they are actually looking on the user experience as well. Yeah. And that's how the craftsmanship actually works. Yeah. So let's we as a person of craftsmanship movement, what we do is, we, without being in the agile movement, we cannot do that, right? If you see, you cannot interact with a society without a computer, an airplane, a traffic light, an air conditioner, your TV, your mobile, everything is connected to a computer. You are producing a computer. You are producing the software, right? And is there any need for craftsmanship? Yes, because this is actually directly impacting the society. Yeah. Operations do not happen without society, for that matter. Yeah. Car failures can happen. Anything can happen. So you cannot compromise over the quality by just leaving the bugs in the code. So why craftsmanship is needed? So I'm assuming that most of us have ever heard of agile term, or probably have worked on agile processes also. So you cannot be a better craftsman person without being in the agile movement, right? And you cannot do the mess with the software, because that has a total impact on the society. So what does the culture of the craftsmanship actually teach us? So there are three things which craftsmanship actually teaches. The first one, which is very important, is that there should be a commitment to the quality. And the quality is not just the functional aspects of the quality, it is actually everything. It should be non-functional. We shall be looking on the factors which actually explain security, performance, accessibility. We are talking about a lot of things and a lot of factors in this matter, right? Quality for us, I mean, we have diverse thinking. So quality for us can be of different, different learning and different understanding. But quality is something which reinforces the user to see, or to see the degree of excellence, I would say. Yeah, but is it just the quality which we are looking for, or are we missing something else? So quality is not something that you'll achieve today and you'll say the next day that I have achieved quality and now I am on the best, right? So it's a continuous journey. You cannot be, a master at one time and you can say that I am a master today and I have nothing to, change in myself and I cannot see any thing which I can learn on. So it's just that there are same level of commitment which we can say, right? And the best craftsmanship people are both proud and eager to grow. We respect for all the crafts as well. So that for you just see that independent people, if we are working independently and we are actually working independently, there is a delicate balance between the team which we actually maintain. And that team, we can, do wonders with the team by actually producing the crafts. And we can create great products with the team itself. So here comes the logic for Excel to change. So what I feel that this entire DevOps thing and the code pipeline thing, which we talk these days, we are actually moving towards the betterment. And that actually itself shows us that we are excelling to the change. Nowadays we are actually working on products, we are talking about DevOps, we are talking about continuous improvement and continuous testing. Yeah, that actually forces and pushes us for the Excel to change. So now the question arises that why and when do we need to evolve? So we have seen that we already had a Java project and now we are looking for the solutions in JavaScript. But we actually looking for the solution which is suitable for us, or is it just something we are looking for the mastery? So it's the understanding of the mastery. We are always looking for and working on our craft, right? So great craftsmen people always seek to contribute for growth, and it's a never ending process, right? You always see that there is something missing in something, some delta you see that you is missing in you, and you really want to, discover yourself more and working on that delta to fill up, right? And tools can help you in consistency and efficiency, but if you don't care about the quality, that's not of any impact, right? You have to look for the quality in every aspect. And that's why this whole process of continuous improvement and evolution comes up. So we nowadays talk about all the SPA things, right? Single page applications. We have all the web apps which are based on SPA. So let's discuss a scenario. If Amazon is built on, old school technology, so they be able to create the or make the business impact as they are doing right now? We'll be waiting for some product to load, and then going to the cart is taking some other time. So there would be a lot of business loss, right? So nowadays we are just talking about SPAs. We are not talking about the Ajax and HTML and all those tables which we used to create in the HTML and putting those CSS. There are a lot of things which have changed. So that itself says that there is a need for the solution, there is a need for the evolution. And I have the stats with me. This is from the very popular website which I have taken this screen grab from. So wherein it itself, you can see that 67% of the developers say that they are using JavaScript and they are working on it, and it works wonder for them. And if you see, Java is somewhere around now number 5, right? So it's just not the technologies which are producing UI. You see, they are SQL and C++ as well, wherein they are talking on backend and front end and Node as well, right? So why JavaScript is so important is JavaScript is widely used for developers for developing their web applications. They are actually using the mean stack. And what is this mean stack? Mean stack means that they are using MongoDB, they're using Express.js, they're using Angular and Node.js as well. So we are covering all the aspects of creating a web development. Yeah, and JavaScript is favorable because it's secure, it is fast, it supports them, right? And it has their inbuilt tools which supports, and we'll be seeing that in the later slides as well. So let's understand that how we can grow while learning and adapting the things which are coming up in the market and how they are favorable to us. So coming back to the problem statement which I have is, I have an Aurelia application, and we as a team need to automate that, right? And what we were struggling with is it a right approach or not to upskill the team and spend the time, right? So this concept is itself the solution for that. So by committing, so just take an example that by committing ourselves to the client's business outcome, what we do is we face challenge, we face some issues, but and these moments are uncomfortable as well. But especially whenever the client is looking for up to you for an expert advice, what would you do? You will not sit back and say that I don't have any idea, or probably I'll research over it and then tell you. Probably you'll say that yes, there would be some struggle in that moment, but that struggle is really worth it, and it's very real. And the good news is that struggle is not just for you, it's around everyone, right? So everyone is looking for that struggle, and everyone is looking for that growth, right? And the struggle is the prerequisite for the growth. If you really want to grow yourself, you have to be understand and come out of your comfort zone to actually see what's there outside. You cannot just sit back and say that Java is working for me and I'll apply a lot of JavaScript executor to write my code and I'll be good. No, because a lot of other technologies are coming, and how good are they for your application? Let's see that, right? You should give it a try. And by just doing that and being reluctant, you're not, you are actually minimizing your growth, and you are just minimizing the sense of your accomplishment for that matter. Yeah. So we as a QA were kind of convinced that we can actually move towards the JavaScript tools. And now the question arises that who will use this application? If I produce an automation framework with JavaScript, what we'll be doing is we'll be actually using it, but we'll be actually owning it, or we'll be maintaining it. So how can we actually make that impact bigger? So what we decided is we will actually make the owners to the team. So the whole product team will be responsible for actually using, owning, and maintaining the framework which we'll develop. Why? Because we'll be using a single repository to create the code. We'll be using, and wherein the developers, the front end, the back end, the QA, everyone will be committing their code. So it's not just front end, back end, and QA. It's the whole team who is actually, contributing towards it and making it a better product every day. So automation framework in itself is a product, right? Because you are selling that product to the stakeholders and you are selling your capabilities to them by applying the best practices which you have in your mind. No? So we decided to work as a team and make that impact unique, which we discussed in the previous slides as well. How that impact is unique? Because, if you see that we have distributed the responsibility and we made sure that every team member is actually harnessing and using that platform to create the collaboration. So what we tried is, we tried these 2 points wherein we are actually impacting and making that impact outsized. It's not just that the developers or the QA are doing it. We are actually taking the inputs from the delivery leaders. We are taking the inputs from product owner. And how we did that? By putting all the aspects in the architecture which we produce. Yeah. So let's check it out. So coming back, so what we have decided to take the baby steps. So we started and looking into the solve for need. What is the requirement and what is the solution which we are actually trying to put here? So it's why, because we are actually working towards the continuous improvement, and what we are trying to move is we are trying to make something which would be better and better every day. So if we have a struggle in TypeScript understanding the promise, for example, so what we'll do is we'll pair with the developer, we'll understand that, and we'll try to make a tomorrow better than today. Yeah, by just practicing more and learning more and hands-on more. And cannot solve all the problems in one go, and you can say that yes, tomorrow would be better and I'll be solving I have already solved all the problems. It never happens. You'll get a lot of issues, you'll get a lot of problems, you'll get a lot of solutions. You'll now then optimize your solution and then look for betterment, right? So that's how it actually works, right? Now what we are doing is we are actually understanding the requirement. What's the requirement? That we have an Aurelia application, we need to automate it. What's the understanding? That we need to build and move towards the new evolution. So we started looking upon the tools and technologies which we can apply as a QA team. So we looked upon Jest with Puppeteer, we looked for Selenium, we have looked for Nightwatch.js, we looked for Cypress, WebDriver IO was also in consideration, and Protractor was also there. So I hope we understood it enough by educating the team and understanding the importance of evolution as a craft person, right? There are a lot of responsibilities which we have taken. We started looking into and dividing the work by ourselves. So we had a team of 4 people as a QA. So one of them are actually looking into the, optimizing the solution. 3 of them are actually looking into creating the automation framework, and then looking into the scope of the sprint. And that's how we started dividing the work. Yeah. What we created is we tried to make that impact on outside, and how we do that is we did that by making the whole team full stack. And full stack is not just the development or the QA. By just the developers are also doing the automation work. They are also reviewing the code and giving the input. We are reviewing the code all together. And why not the whole team can be full stack for that matter, right? So how we created the architecture was, this is the front end architecture, and this is the back end architecture, right? And we had our test automation framework. So what we tried is we tried to put all the aspects in here with the developer. So we have taken TypeScript from here, ES6 here, we have taken Node, NPM, and VS Code for the here. And now for as a QA, what we need to add is we need to add the assertion library, which we have taken as Chai. We have taken a VDD framework for Cucumber. And the question mark here states that the framework should be flexible enough that you can put any tool here. So you have created a ground for the architecture, and now you are open to put any tool here, right? Which we discussed in the previous slide. You can try and explore the options, and the ground has been set for you. You have now understanding that what basic requirements you require to create an automation framework. For our application, Protactor was the best fit. So Protactor was the best fit for us, and what we tried was we tried to apply that solution. So why Protactor was best for us is it has a support for Node, it has a support for Jasmine. There was syntax which we actually use, and developers were also using Jest. So we use the same syntax for describe it in here in our application. Now, as a QA, what we actually see is how compatible our automation framework is, right? So we started looking into the browser support option. So as a requirement, what we have is we had Chrome driver and Firefox driver and Safari, which we have to take as a consideration, which came up as a client requirement. So what we had is we have to support Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, and Protactor was actually solving all those problems for us, all those solutions for us. And in the near future, we didn't see that there was a support for mobile, which we have to give as a QA team. So we were good on that. But still, the question arises, did we miss anything, or are we good? So we have given support to browser, we have given support to scripting language, we are doing good with the reporting. We are actually putting our best practices with behavior-driven framework by applying, Cucumber support. We tried to segregate the pages by applying page object model, and we created and integrated the child library for assertion as well. But is it all what is required for an architecture to be created? So the answer is there are many things and many aspects which we can use, right? We haven't think on the non-functional aspects. And what as a craftsperson we need to see is we need to actually look for the broader picture, right? And integrate it all together, what we can do. Probably right now is not the right solution to put in, and we can take in the backlog in consideration that we can apply. But we shall always think upon these factors whenever we are creating an automation framework. And it should not, throw back you in a situation wherein you'll say that there is no support for these at all in my framework. Yeah. So what is the culture of craftsmanship teachers? So let's take an example wherein, if you're constructing a building, right, there are a lot of effort you actually give up while prepping up, right? In prepping up, what you do is you actually create your buildings, you think of the structure, you think of the staging areas, you think of struggling with the cranes and all that, right? But these are the important aspects to the building process, right? And won't be there when the final structure will be there, but it's the ground which you are setting up, right? And these are easy for non-builders to dismiss and undervalue, right? But you being the masters of it, you being in the crafts of it, you actually think on those aspects as a constructor, right? And the same concept applies in the digital product. So there is a whole concept of techniques and tools and clean code, CI/CD, unit test coverage, linear and static analyzer. What else, right? You actually do your code reviews, automation of regression tests, continuously building a cloud. You always do that, right? And you can always look up for the non-functional aspects as well. Is my product secure enough? It is performing well? Is it cross-browser support or not? And you guessed it right, the product is never done. Yeah, there are a lot of things which you can always think every other day. And this manifesto of software craftsmanship always teach you 4 main things which we just discussed, which is that well-crafted software is something which is ready for delivery, right? And we can actually, readily and steadily add value. It's not something that one fine day we say that this is the product which we are going to produce and let's take a year to produce it, and we will not be doing any additions to it. You have to evolve and adapt your software yourself to actually, stabilize those things in the society. And you have to see the power of the team, that how we as a team can actually make a value addition and make that more productive as a product, right? The first thing which we have to do while delivering a product or creating a product or testing a product is that we should commit to the quality. And how we do it is that it does not matter that what tool you use. It should solve the problem which is there in your mind, right? It always, depend on the solution which you are putting up rather than they're just fixing the issue. Yeah. And as a team, the question arises is, are we ensuring the quality? Are we actually looking into the broader picture? Or we are just looking upon the releases and we are just looking into the acceptance criteria and definition of them, that it's there in the points or not, and we are just using that or not, right? We shall think on other aspects as well, which includes the best practices, and how we can actually evaluate those best practices is that totally depends on the project which you are using, and it could be customized. So we jot down some best practices for ourselves. These are some which includes, we started looking into the TDD approach. We started looking into how we can pair program more. So one developer plus one QA can actually pair up and look for the solutions. There were a lot of, initially there were a lot of work in progress tasks which were coming up as a spillover in the sprint, which was not good. So we started looking into how we can limit the WIPs for us, and closely looking into the burn down charts, which actually shows that how many tickets we as a team are burning, not just the QA or a dev, it's just the whole, the functionality we are burning as a whole. So what are the best practices which we have seen is, while producing an architecture, that we started looking into the TypeScript, and we created our product in TypeScript rather than in JS. Why? Because TS has a lot of other features which JS does not support. And that was an advice given to us by a developer, and that's how the pair programming is actually related, right? We kept our test data in JSON files. That was another addition given by the developer, and we got that JSONs are more fast. You can actually, take the key values out there, putting the loggers and then segregating the classes in the page object. That was another thing which we have kept as a team. And then understanding the asynchronous behavior of the code, right? Putting async and await and the promise handling all together was a boom for us, and it works in wonder for us. And these were the best practices which we have kept. And we tried to we took like 3 sprints to make that happen, but yes, these are the one which we have incorporated in our project altogether. So what are the lessons which we have learned by doing this? So the first one was that your test scripts should run on both the browser in the real mode and on the headless mode as well. Why headless mode? Because we rely on headless mode for fast execution, and that really helps us. We usually see for the continuous integration compatibility issues, and TypeScript and JavaScript, it supports a lot of frameworks like Cucumber, Mocha, and Jasmine. We started with Jasmine because it was supporting by, it was quite similar to Jest. So we decided to start working on it, and it's a default framework which comes with Protractor. Then we realized that why not to put in Cucumber and utilize and take the inputs from product owner as well by applying the BDD concept. And we adapted that and evolved that, and it also worked well because we showcased that automation framework in our sprint demonstration, and we got good feedbacks for that as well. What all other lessons which we have learned? So what we as a team tried is, we always try to stimulate the real users, but we cannot do that, right? You should always think on a perspective that you as an end customer, what you can automate and what not. So you shall always give that line and draw that line that these are the things which you cannot be automated, with a reason that why not. And Protractor is something wherein you can it gives supports to only JavaScript and TypeScript. So if you are thinking on putting any other scripting language or any other programming language, so you'll find hard time in doing that. For that, what you need to do is you need to revamp your architecture. So keep that in point whenever you are actually picking any tool. And then debugging in Protractor, that is another thing which we have struggled with. So the point here is that, are we actually trying to make a progress, or are we just doing the pointers? So the thing was, we tried to mitigate the process with with all these pointers, which says that are we applying the static analysis, are we doing the code reviews well, are we putting the branching strategies? So if you see that there are a lot of things which is still in progress for us as a team, because the concept is that the product is something wherein you need to keep on growing yourself and learning by yourself. So what are the takeaways? Try and experiment, evolve yourself, and try to understand the risk before mitigating it, and keep on learning and sharing. So whatever learnings we had, we tried to share it with the team as a team, not the QA team, the whole product team who is developing it. So we tried to put the learning sessions end of the sprint demo, so those really helped us. Some of the other takeaways was we always thought of as a team's perspective, not an independent perspective. So that really helped us, because we have taken leverage from the developers to make a code review, the static analyzer which we have put in, and maintaining the quality of a team as well, and let them understand, and the whole team understand that how quality is important. So does that covers it all? As I said, there are a lot of things which we are still working on. So the first one is software assertion. We are still working on, and that is something which is in to-do list in the backlog, and we usually take that in the sprint and then work on it. The cloud integration is still something which we are working on, and later in the part which we have seen that their Protractor has been very minimal support with Microsoft Azure cloud. We tried that integration and we are working on that, and that's something which we are going to take next. Though we have created our automation framework and it's working, but still there are a lot of things which we are developing on, which we are working on. So that's how the product works. There are a lot of things which you are working on. There are a lot of things which you have to work on. And that's how, the continuous journey of continuous improvement works. So that's all for me today, guys. Any Q&As, any questions, we can take that, Smita.
Thanks a lot, Khyati. Thanks for the session, and thanks for sharing your knowledge and your experience with all of us. I do have a couple of questions, and we can quickly run through them. Can you please explain sprint burn down charts?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So sprint burn down chart is some statistics which you can apply in sprint. So there's a concept in Agile which talk about the burn down charts. What it actually gives us is two verses. So there is a x-axis and there are y-axis. So the stories which you are burning versus the task which you have taken. So for example, if you have taken a 30 pointers or 30 velocity for a sprint, and you can see in that chart that how readily it is burning. So what does that it means is gives you a graphical and pictorial picture that you have taken, for example, 30 story points, right, in the sprint. Have you burned it? How many times you have burned it? It should be a linear chart for that matter. That means that you're churning and burning the user stories on a daily basis, probably continuously, right? And for that growth, you can see that whenever you deliver something to QA, it is actually completing the user story. So the user stories should not go in last in the sprint, and then you see a drift and moving down of the sprint, the burning the user stories. So this is how the pictorial representation of burn down chart is.
Great. Thanks, Khyati. The next question here is, what impact have you seen on the maintenance of automation because of all these practices that you have adopted?
Can you repeat the question, Smita?
Yeah, sure. What impact have you seen on the maintenance of automation framework because of adopting all the practices that you mentioned?
Sure. So do you see that what we have tried is we tried to take the ownership as a team of the automation framework. So generally as a QA, what we struggle with is we struggle with putting the code analysis or best practices and how we can actually make our code better to make the test cases more reliable and not flaky for that matter. So what we tried is we tried to incorporate the code reviews, and those code reviews were not just the QAs were taking. The whole team, the development team was also doing the code reviews, and there were a lot of great comments coming up in the code reviews which we can utilize. So it's not just about the code, also the stakeholders, when we are actually putting them and showcasing them in the sprint demo that these are the test case coverage which we have provided. So they were actually coming up with the scenarios that, oh, these are the things which we have covered, can you add this as well in the automation framework? And those are the really good contributions which we utilizes as a team, and we have taken the inputs from the team. Hope that answers the question.
Great. We'll move on to the next question here. Which tools support Canvas web application?
Canvas web application. So I haven't worked on it. So Protractor is something, if the application is based on web development, you can utilize that because JavaScript and TypeScript is something which Protractor supports. So all the tools which I have mentioned in the options list, WebDriver IO, Selenium, Protractor, Nightwatch, they all support JavaScript and TypeScript. If Canvas application is supporting JavaScript and TypeScript, so you can use these tools as well.
Great. My last question here for you is, how do you really involve the whole team on ground?
Right, that was one of the struggle which we had. So what we tried is, there is a concept in our organization which supports the sandpits. So we have started conducting every Friday a sandpit, wherein an hour was spent with the whole team, wherein we started, looking upon the options which we have started. So QA was doing the mentoring of the things, that these are the options, these are the things which we can support, because Aurelia application was new to the developers as well. So they were actually, brainstorming and struggling and looking for the good options. So we sat as a team and we started looking into the options. We, given the learning sessions and sharing sessions amongst the team. And that's how the delivery leader played a great role in that. Client engagement partner played a great role in that. And team played a very good role as well. So that's one of the key factors which we have applied as a team, that we paired together, we understood the problem, we understood how critical the solution or the problem is, and as a team we look for the trust amongst ourselves, and how they have seen as a developer that these are the problems we as a QA are facing, and we as a QA have given them how the approach and how the unit test coverage can be improved. So collaborating together actually helped in that for these situations.
Thanks, Khyati. I think we're done with our Q&A. So I'm going to share my screen back again.
Sure. Thank you, Smita.
Thanks. All right. So thank you again, Khyati, for sharing all these details with our attendees. I'm sure they found it to be very informative and useful again. I hope to see you at the upcoming conference.
Sure.
Well, everyone, this concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for making the most of the webinar for yourself and the whole group by engaging and asking questions. We have STPCon Virtual 2020 coming up on the 29th and 30th of September. The whole program is up for you to review and register at stpcon.com. Please do go for it. And don't forget to spread the word around with your friends and colleagues, please. Stay tuned for more webinars at softwaretestpro.com. We have an upcoming webinar which is implementing BDD, how one team is making it work, on the 9th of September. The speaker is Christine Ketterlin Fisher, who's the manager for BA and QA, business analyst and quality analyst at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. During this talk, Christine will be focusing on what happens when a traditional organization completely turns their old processes upside down and sets out to conquer BDD. If the subject interests you, please do sign up for the same at softwaretestpro.com. And before I leave, let me also remind you the call for submissions for these webinars is open and will remain open all year round. Please do send in your proposals at the given link. Thank you, everyone. Please stay healthy and safe, and good luck for all you do. Hoping to see you all at the upcoming webinars and the STPCon Virtual 2020 conference. Thank you.